The moment Karen slammed a bright red violation notice onto my front door, I knew this Christmas season was about to become explosive. But what I didn't know was that the same lights she claimed were a safety hazard would earn me a citywide award from the fire department 3 weeks later. This story isn't just about Christmas decorations. It's about how far an entitled HOA enforcer will go when she wants control, and how spectacularly it can backfire. It all started on the first Saturday of December. I had been outside untangling lights, sipping hot cocoa, and enjoying the crisp snap of winter air. My kids were inside making gingerbread houses while holiday music played from the porch speakers. Everything felt warm, peaceful, and perfect. Until Karen marched across the street like a mall security guard who'd just spotted a teenager chewing gum. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She didn't even breathe, I think. She just stomped up to my ladder, glared at my lights, and said, "You can't put those up. They're a code violation." I looked around, confused. Half the neighborhood already had lights up. Some had inflatable snowmen twice the size of my car. But apparently, the real issue was that my lights were too bright, too early, too festive, basically too happy for her personal taste. I tried to explain that I had checked the HOA guidelines. Decorations were allowed after December 1st. I was well within the rules. But Karen wasn't interested in rules. She wanted power. She wanted to feel like the neighborhood sheriff. And to her, my Christmas lights were the perfect opportunity to issue a citation and remind everyone that she controlled the block. That afternoon, she filed an official complaint. By evening, I had a notice taped to my door claiming my lights were excessively luminous, potentially hazardous, and a disturbance to community visual harmony. I laughed at first until I saw the fine, $200. My kids were devastated. My wife was irritated. But me? I became determined. I wasn't about to let someone dim our holiday joy. I decided to double down, check every real safety standard, and make my display not just compliant, but impressive enough to shut down every complaint she could throw at me. What Karen didn't realize was that my brother-in-law is an electrician who takes holiday decorating as seriously as NASA takes rocket launches. When he heard what happened, he came over with industrial-grade clips, certified outdoor wiring, and a grin that said he lived for moments like this. Together, we redesigned the entire display with perfect spacing, flawless safety measures, and energy-efficient LEDs that used less power than Karen's porch camera anyway. The morning after Karen issued the fine, I woke up to find her standing across the street with binoculars, as if she were a wildlife researcher studying a dangerous new species. Except the species was my Christmas lights. My wife peeked through the curtains, sighed, and said, "She's going to make this the longest December of our lives." I agreed, but I also felt something else, a spark of mischief. Determined not to let Karen destroy the holiday spirit, I spent the day enhancing the display with safer wiring, professionally mounted hooks, and a timer system that turned everything off automatically at midnight. Every improvement I made only seemed to make Karen angrier. She paced the sidewalk, muttering into her phone, probably calling every HOA board member she could find who hadn't already blocked her number. By Wednesday, she had filed 3 more complaints. One claimed the lights were causing glare on her windows. Another said the extension cords were emotionally distressing. The final one simply stated, "His decorations mock the dignity of our community." I didn't even know dignity could be mocked by lights shaped like candy canes, but apparently Karen did. What I didn't realize was that all these complaints ended up triggering a routine safety review by the local fire department. When 2 firefighters pulled up in a truck, Karen sprinted outside as if reinforcements had arrived to arrest me. She greeted them with dramatic urgency, pointing at my roof like it was moments away from bursting into flames. The firefighters listened politely, nodded thoughtfully, and then walked over to me instead. They asked reasonable questions: how many watts the display used, what circuits I plugged into, whether I used certified wiring. My brother-in-law had helped with every detail, so I answered confidently. When I flipped on the display for them, the firefighters smiled. One even said, "Honestly, this is one of the safest setups we've seen." Keran overheard that. She froze. Then she sputtered. Then she marched back inside without a word, slamming her door so hard a wreath fell off her porch railing. But the firefighters weren't done. They took notes, snapped pictures, and said they'd be submitting a report. I assumed that was standard procedure. I didn't know it would set the stage for the biggest twist of the season, a twist Keran definitely wouldn't like. By the weekend, Keran had stopped speaking to anyone on the block, convinced she alone was protecting civilization from my reckless illumination strategy. Meanwhile, neighbors dropped by with cookies, cocoa, and jokes about adding an even brighter display just to watch her spiral deeper into holiday outrage. It was hilarious. When the fire department's report finally arrived, I expected a simple thumbs up confirming that everything was safe. Instead, I found an official letter stating my display had been nominated for their annual Community Safety Excellence Award. I laughed out loud, then immediately pictured Keran fainting on her perfectly trimmed lawn if she ever found out. My wife framed the letter before I could even finish reading it. The award ceremony was scheduled for the next Saturday at the town hall, and the fire chief personally invited me to attend. I hadn't planned to turn this into a public event, but fate had different plans, because Keran somehow learned about the nomination within hours. I knew she knew because she left a note in my mailbox reading, "This is absurd. I will be escalating." Escalating to where? The Supreme Court? All week, she ramped up her efforts. She filed 2 new complaints, including one claiming that the fire department was biased and unqualified to assess holiday risks. Another accused me of weaponizing Christmas cheer. The HOA stopped responding to her emails entirely. At this point, I think they had a dedicated folder named Keran Nonsense. Meanwhile, the neighborhood kids started treating my house like a local attraction. Families walked by in the evenings, taking pictures in front of the lights. Someone even made hot chocolate stand money because people kept stopping to admire the setup. The irony was incredible. The more Keran fought to destroy the display, the more beloved it became. The night before the ceremony, Keran knocked on my door. Her face was tight, her jaw clenched, and her tone dramatic enough to win an Oscar. "You need to withdraw," she announced. "Your award makes a mockery of this community." I told her politely that I wouldn't be withdrawing anything. She glared at me, whispered, "This isn't over," and marched away like a villain leaving a cliffhanger scene. Saturday morning arrived with bright winter sunshine. I put on my nicest jacket, grabbed the framed nomination letter, and headed to the town hall with my family. The room was packed. Firefighters, neighbors, local officials, and even a reporter. When the fire chief began describing the award recipient as someone who exceeded safety standards while inspiring community unity, Keran burst through the doors. She was breathing hard, pointing at me and yelling, "He shouldn't be awarded anything." Before anyone could react, the fire chief calmly raised a hand and asked her to take a seat. The crowd watched as she stood frozen, torn between arguing and obeying. Finally, she sat, fuming, while the chief continued. His next words silenced the room. The award wasn't just recognition. It came with a community spotlight feature in the local newspaper. Keran's expression collapsed the instant. The fire chief announced the newspaper feature. She looked as if someone had unplugged her emotions and rebooted her face into pure horror. Meanwhile, the entire audience applauded as my family, and I stepped onto the stage to accept the award. The fire chief shook my hand and said, "Your display wasn't just safe. It brought the neighborhood together." Keran let out an audible gasp, like someone had told her peppermint was illegal. The reporter approached me with a camera and mic, asking questions about safety, community spirit, and the unexpected drama that had unfolded. I answered honestly, complimenting the fire department's work and explaining how important it was to create something joyful for the kids. Keran hovered in the back like a storm cloud ready to strike. When the ceremony ended, neighbors congratulated me in the lobby. One elderly couple said they'd never seen the community so cheerful during the holidays. Another family asked if we planned to add more decorations next year. Keran overheard that question and nearly combusted. But the final blow came a few days later, when the newspaper published the article. The headline read, "Local Resident Wins Fire. Department Safety Award for Christmas. Display." The accompanying photo showed me, smiling proudly in front of the lights, while, in the background, Keran stood frozen mid-glare. The reporter hadn't meant to include her. She just happened to be lurking there. The image went mildly viral in our town's Facebook group. People joked that she looked like the ghost of HOA present. Others said she resembled someone who had been personally victimized by Christmas joy. Keran did not appreciate the humor. That week, the HOA board quietly reversed my fine, stating it had been issued in error. They also updated their decoration guidelines, clarifying what was and wasn't allowed, likely to prevent Keran from ever weaponizing holiday rules again. As for the lights, we kept them up until the final day allowed. Every night, families came by to enjoy the display. Kids laughed. Neighbors bonded. And Keran stayed inside, blinds closed, pretending none of it existed. The best part? The fire chief later asked if I'd be willing to help design next year's community safety workshop. I said yes immediately. Even months later, people still teased me about the whole situation. Whenever someone mentioned holiday plans, they'd wink and say, "Just make sure Keran approves." It became an ongoing joke. A reminder that sometimes the most unexpected conflicts create the best memories. My kids still talk about the award with pride. And my wife already has sketches for an even safer, brighter display next Christmas. Can't wait. Enjoying these wild HOA and Keran stories? Go ahead and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next twist-filled chaos. If this one made you laugh or rage, drop a like and tell me in the comments what you would have done in this situation.